these organizations. So I'd like to introduce Sally Allen with the Livermore Lab Foundation. And the Livermore Lab Foundation is a key philanthropic partner to Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, providing mechanisms for public and private investments, grants, and philanthropic gifts that support research, student fellows, STEM outreach, education, and community initiatives. Sally is also joined by Matthew Garrett, also with Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, so different from the foundation. Matt Garrett is the director of the Innovation and Partnerships Office at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. The Innovation and Partnerships Office serves as the focal point for lab engagement with the private sector. So welcome.
Good morning. Nice to see you all. I think I'm going first. Is that right? Okay. I have just a few slides to share with you this morning, and I know will be a great complement to Matt's remarks in a few minutes. So let me just attempt to share my screen here. One moment. Make sure that's working for you all. Can you all see that?
Yes, we can. Perfect.
Super. Okay. So again, I'm Sally Allen I'm the executive director of the Livermore Lab Foundation. We were really pleased to host a mixer earlier this summer where we saw many of you, and it's nice to see so many friends again this morning. So thank you to the Chamber for this opportunity to share a little bit about the foundation. Is this working? There, okay. So this first slide is really intended to just set some context for you all before I go into a few more details about the foundation itself. We are, having a lab affiliated foundation was sort of a novel concept back in 2016 when our foundation was established. And in the last 7 to 8 years, really, the concept of having a philanthropic partner who can support a national laboratory has gained a lot of traction with a number of other national labs. I'm not spending a lot of time on the lab itself today because I imagine most of you are well familiar with what a tremendous resource it is in the community. But back in 2016, we were the third foundation to be established with the goal of thinking about ways of providing a nonprofit mechanism that could help amplify the impact of the incredible expertise, resources, facilities that are available at a national lab, and sort of recognizing the tremendous investment that the public sector makes in these national labs and the impact that they have, particularly at Livermore in national security, that a lot of that expertise has dual use applications in a number of areas and big problems that are of significance to the greater good, whether it's energy resilience, biosecurity, the list goes, healthcare, the list goes on and on. And so the idea of the founders of the Livermore Lab Foundation was to provide a nonprofit mechanism that could be another access point to leverage the public sector investment in a national lab for the public good. And so we really see our foundation as providing that mechanism and that creative sort of additional tool in the tool belt for partnerships with a national lab. We, as a nonprofit, separate and apart, fully funded and governed separately from Livermore Lab, we are just we have a little more agility and creativity and flexibility in terms of the funding partners that we can engage with and the relationship building that we can focus on. We see ourselves as a real connection point and a bridge to the broader community of partners that the National Lab is increasingly looking to address the work. Nothing that we do at the foundation is without a champion internally or multiple champions internally at the lab. So really our mission to advance science is tightly aligned with Livermore Lab's focus on their science and technology priorities. And a lot of, we've designed our programs with the idea of, if we can bring in additional private philanthropic investments to a PI who's working in a space that's of interest to a Gates Foundation or a Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation or a Breakthrough Energy, that's just that much more work and impact that we can have, not only for the national security mission at the lab, but then again, through those bigger philanthropic partners, having more applications beyond that national security core. We also, as a nonprofit mechanism, can sometimes pay for things more easily or readily than the lab can. As you can imagine, their budget is largely dictated at the federal level and tied to a lot of that those core mission space. And so they obviously have an incredible student program and bring thousands of students to the lab each year. We can pay for things like travel to conferences or scholarships or sometimes housing support or tuition, things that just are not sometimes able to be covered at the lab. So we use that opportunity to reach out to groups of students and campus partners that may fall outside the traditional network of the lab and help to kind of diversify and cultivate that pipeline. And then lastly, the bullet point, accelerating tech transfer. This is something that Matt will probably speak to a little bit later. This has been less of a focus to date with our foundation as I get into sort of our research areas and our STEM programs, but it's certainly at the heart of a number of conversations happening at the Department of Energy itself, who has been authorized to set up its own nonprofit foundation called the Foundation for Energy Security and Innovation. And so it's increasingly an area of focus, not only at the federal level, but with other lab affiliated foundations. There we go. So a little bit about the foundation. Our mission, as I mentioned, is really to advance science and inspire that next generation of scientists and engineers at Lawrence Livermore National Lab. And this group of folks that you see here is our current board. When the foundation was established back in 2016, there were 7 founding board members. It was a group of really private individuals, both at the lab at the time, some retirees, and current lab director Kim Budell was at that time at the University of California Office of National Laboratories, and she was one of our earliest champions for the foundation, helped build the case for a philanthropic partner to the lab, and we're forever indebted to her leadership and early vision on what that might look like. She also was instrumental in helping us build a case for an affiliation agreement that sort of formalized the endorsement from UC in the form of some financial support for our administrative operations, without which we would not have been able to stand up the foundation, and then continued opportunities to partner with a very strong academic commitment. In fact, that was most recently realized through our, we have a new office now. I don't know if many of you were at the event, but those who have not, the foundation has an office at the UC Livermore Collaboration Center, which I'm sure Scott has mentioned to this group, was the former Hertz Hall. Really beautiful space, really great convening space, and an opportunity to facilitate more collaborations with not only UC campuses, but many, many other partners and other labs. So I am the full-time paid staff with the foundation. Currently, I have a half-time admin support as well, but our board has been incredible. Many of you, if not most, know Donna Crawford, who's our board chair. She has been our stalwart leader from day one, and the board is very engaged in helping us to advance the mission. The way we structured our bylaws, as I said, although we're separate from the lab, we have that close affiliation. So they did spend some time thinking about how to structure the governance in a way that made sure that the activities of the foundation really align with and complement the work that's going on at the lab. So the lab director is an ex officio member, non-voting. We are able to kind of always get the latest news and developments from her participation, as well as that early leadership, which I mentioned. And then the lab also designates 2 additional directors who sit on our board. UC appoints 2 directors on our board. And then we have a number of at-large positions as well to sort of extend the reach and the networking that we can access. So it's an interesting mix of folks, because we really rely on the critical expertise and knowledge and familiarity of the lab and its capabilities on the one hand, and on the other, because of that connection point that we want to have with the broader community, we're very interested in having additional folks on the board who have those other experiences in the community at large. And I will say we have seats available. We're not full. So if there are folks who are thinking about things like that, I'm always happy to talk to people who might be interested. Briefly, these are the 3 priority research areas that our board has designated for us to focus on. as you can imagine, as a multidisciplinary applied science national laboratory, there is no end to the number of disciplines and subjects and applications that we could think about supporting at the foundation. But in order to put some framework around that, that would enable us to kind of communicate more clearly with potential funders and our donors, we landed on these 3 areas, again, largely in consultation with the lab, whose mission focus areas outside of the pure national security mission align pretty closely with these. As you can imagine, there have been tremendous opportunities in accelerating climate solutions and the energy conversations happening globally, throughout the state, regionally, locally here in Livermore. There are not only funding opportunities, but a number of partners and entities and organizations that really want to tap into the expertise at the lab to inform policy discussions, to help inform critical community conversations about trade-offs and understanding the technological solutions to some of these climate challenges people are facing. And so most of our activities and funds that we've raised to date have been in this space. Many of you may be familiar with the Getting to Neutral report that was issued back in 2020 that became, a very, very strong blueprint for the state of California as it looked to ways to achieve carbon neutrality by mid-century. And so that's a report that might not have unfolded in the same way had there not been a nonprofit foundation who was available as a philanthropic mechanism to the funder who was interested in funding that research. And so we took that opportunity to then leverage that initial investment in that research to make sure that report didn't sit on a shelf and was communicated far and wide. Obviously, Scott's office and the lab was instrumental in that as well. And again, with a foundation, we have a little more flexibility to host convenings and other conversations or webinars, and do a little more the type of events that would showcase the lab expertise and amplify the impact in a way that the lab is focused on the pure science. And so being that partner has enabled us to get that science out far and wide. And I'll speak a little bit later about kind of where that has led to in terms of next steps. But we also were able to attract other philanthropic partners who wanted to extend the community outreach and educational aspects of the findings in that report. So helping folks just in the communities that we're going to be experiencing things like a carbon capture and sequestration project, understanding the science behind that. We can bring scientists from the lab into communities, even at the one-on-one conversational level, but also at a regional conference level, and talk about these things. We also have worked with educators throughout the state, actually, to develop a set of classroom materials at the high school level, again, based on the science at the lab and Getting to Neutral on understanding the whole context behind the report and what that means for them locally. We've also recently been part of the City of Livermore's climate action implementation plan. Really been happy to partner with Quest and the city and others, again, to kind of ensure that we're tapping into this tremendous community resource in the lab for these conversations. So I could talk about climate all day long. I'll move on. In our other areas, just briefly, neurodegenerative disease has been an area that we have supported from early days. Many of you might know Mike Piscotti from ALS Cure Project. He's a lab employee. That partnership has been incredibly successful in the sense that, he had a tremendous personal loss and has channeled that into amazing success in raising funds toward a cure for ALS. And so he early on, but even prior to my arrival at the foundation, connected with Donna at the foundation and recognized that, again, the lab had capabilities, whether it was high performance computing or modeling or in any of the bioassays and biological work that they do, that could help accelerate the understanding around this disease. And that if we could showcase the lab's capabilities to the broader, research community, the clinical community, and become more of an active, proactive partner in those research collaborations, we could progress much more quickly in some of these areas. So we started in ALS, very quickly kind of grew to understand it has a lot of the findings in these early stage research projects we have funded have applications for the broad suite of brain disease and disorders that our aging population is contending with. And so it's a really promising area of growth for the foundation. And then lastly, as everyone knows, in the past year with the really exciting fusion ignition milestone that took place last year, at the end of last year, and has continued into this year, we very quickly brought to the board, our recommendation that we expand our research portfolio to start looking at ways that we can use the foundation to promote this fusion innovation. A lot of the lessons we've learned from the climate conversations and the climate programs we've developed would apply pretty readily in fusion as well. There's a great deal of public awareness, education that kind of needs to take place to get us from where we are today to a few decades out with ideally a commercially viable, fusion power plants. And so what ways can the foundation find partners that can accelerate those community conversations and understanding? So those are our 3 research areas. We also, STEM has been at the heart of our mission from day one. Although we have support from University of California, as I said, for our operations, all the program dollars that we raise go completely toward our direct service programs. And so early on, when there was very little program dollars, the board really wanted to direct that to STEM in a way that would really have an impact in the community. And so recognizing that there are a number of incredible STEM providers in our very close Tri-Valley region, starting with the school district itself, with Quest, with any number of other programs that are doing great work in the community related to science, we've tried to craft a program at the foundation that complements all of that, right? Really thinking about, again, that unique bridge to Livermore Lab. And so most of our programs have evolved to focus on fellowship awards and research stipends that support undergraduate and graduate students that go on to do summer internships or even full year internships at the lab. And having the dedicated mentors that Livermore Lab provides to these students is life-changing in a lot of ways. And so we try to use the dollars that we raise for our STEM program to reach out to those students who might not otherwise know about a national lab or have access to a national lab, and really open the door to the possibilities of where they can go. A lot of our undergraduate students say they weren't even considering grad school until they spent a summer at the lab and kind of realized the possibilities. And so that's been an exciting growing area of our portfolio. A number of individual donors, both at the lab and retirees, as well as a couple of folks I see here too, really make that possible. And so this photo on the left is our cohort of fellows that we supported this past summer. We have a quote from Kyle, who was with us last year, a year ago. And then on the bottom right, I just wanted to share too, what's great about having a foundation is we can throw a great party. So last year we had, the lab was celebrating its 70th anniversary. And so we took that as an opportunity to host a reception where we brought back all of the former lab directors, as well as our current director, Kim, for really a celebration to commemorate the lab's achievements and its impact. And so we look forward to more opportunities like that. So I'll just end again with, I know I spent a lot of time on climate previously, but we're really excited about this space. And I was hoping this point would sort of segue nicely into Matt's talk. Really having the foundation, we really see our role as trying to help leverage partnerships. Kim Budell talks a lot about, the increasing complexity of the problems that are facing today's world, and that it's going to take all of us to address them. And so while the lab has, the smartest square mile of PhDs anywhere, they recognize that they're even stronger with partners outside of those gates. And so we try to provide a mechanism to expand those partnerships and facilitate them. And the climate portfolio has been our shining example of that. The last thing I'll mention, since I touched on some of those points earlier, is that there's another report coming out later this year called Roads to Removal. It's looking at a national assessment of carbon dioxide removal solutions, a county by county quantitative analysis of the solutions and the trade-offs that each region in this country are going to need to consider to move us toward carbon neutrality. And it also adds an environmental justice lens to that study, which was something new from the methodology used with getting to neutral. We're really excited about this groundbreaking study. It's coming. And again, we're working with the lab closely on a national rollout, and we'll be hosting regional conversations across the country starting early next year to share the science and connect people with the scientists. And I'd love to talk with City of Livermore about maybe doing something local here to bring it home. So those are, I hope I didn't go on too long. Just quickly mention, we have our website, we have a mailing list, we do a newsletter a couple times a year to stay up to date on our events. And last but not least, we are hosting we're hosting a reception in collaboration with the Bankhead and the lab on November 29th. It's an evening with Kim Budell at the Bankhead Theater. It's going to be a really amazing event. It's free of charge. There are still tickets available, and I would encourage all of you to come out and spend the evening with the lab. So thanks again for the opportunity to meet with you all today.
Thank you, Sally. So, Matt, I believe it's your turn.
Yeah, you want me to just jump right in? All right.
I think
Well,
so.
let me,
Unless
I'm
anybody has
gonna,
any questions for Sally. Otherwise, you can put them in the chat, but I don't
Yeah,
see.
Sally, could you put your contact information? I missed that last slide. If you could just drop that in the chat, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Sorry, Matt, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Let me see if I can get the technology to work. Well, what a great segue. Thank you to Sherry Souza for the invitation to speak to the Livermore Valley Chamber of Commerce. I was asked to come and speak about this particular focus and mission space of the lab, the Innovation Partnerships Office. I recently assumed the director's position almost 4.5, 5 months ago. Time flies really fast. So I'm excited. I'm starting to roll out what the vision of my office is going to be over the next few years. And we'll talk a lot about the innovation ecosystem in this talk. And I firmly believe that everyone on this particular meeting today is a part of that in my mind. So my office, it has a particular mission focus or space that's important to the Department of Energy and the National Nuclear Security Administration. The overall sort of tagline is, how do we accelerate the United States economic competitiveness? And how does the laboratory do that? Well, it does that through taking the ideas that are developed by our scientists and engineers and finding the way to have them create impact in the domestic economy. And there's a number of ways we go about achieving that goal. Obviously, when a business or a startup wants to take an idea to market, they have to have some sort of legal position to do so. So we generate a lot of intellectual property or IP that's based upon the innovations that come out of the lab. I have a great team of scientists and engineers that actually engage, and their whole mission of what they do is engaging with industry, both across the country and locally here in the Tri-Valley. I have a number of folks that make sure that we comply with the DOE and the NNSA's wishes and our contract with them to make sure that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's with regard to our legal agreements. And we have a number of activities and outreach that we do for budding entrepreneurs, both that are coming out of the lab and that are engaging with the lab. And so some of the key outcomes that we try to accomplish as far as our activities go in the office are under the terms of economic growth and how do we enhance the workforce in many ways. So, ideally, what we want to try to do is take the innovations that come out of the lab and turn them into products, working with companies, and those products are then sold on the marketplace, and it creates benefit to the economy, and that creates jobs, which I'll talk about in a little bit. We also create a larger ecosystem and a network of people who are aware of the impact that we have, and also are encouraged to engage with us as well. So impact's a big thing. I know that we're going to talk a lot about numbers in a little bit, but I find that a lot of times we're governed by the numbers and specific things that we try to have output on, and I'm trying to encourage the folks that we're working with and the folks that I'm leading to think about the impact that we're having and what that means. And what does that mean? I think it really depends upon the members of the innovation ecosystem that we're working with. And so you classify who those members of the innovation ecosystem are. Obviously, you have the scientists and engineers, and what do they think is impact? They want to make a difference. A lot of them, a lot of them are very idealistic. They want to see an idea that they've come up with make an impact in society. In my prior life, prior to being in the national lab system, I was able to do that at a startup back east in Boston during for the national security enterprise. So I was able to take an idea working with a university, licensing the technology, and creating a product that actually has saved American lives in many ways. So it's a lot of people want to have that experience. It's a core part of who they are. The prestige that comes along with that, and sometimes it's about the Benjamins for some of them. They want to create royalties from the licensed products that come out of the lab. Senior leadership. If you talk to, I had the opportunity to talk to, as part of a leadership program of the Department of Energy last year, I had the opportunity to talk to all 17 national lab directors. And I got to ask them the question about what do they define as impact for the tech transfer, sort of innovation partnerships, innovation ecosystem. And by and large, most of them said they want to have good stories to tell. They want to be able to communicate to the folks back east in DC and the partners that they're working with that they're making a difference. And we really are as a lab. The DOE is obviously, and the NSA obviously interested in numbers. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then if you talk to Congress, they're very interested in job creation. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. Some of the number of jobs have been created just from products that have come from innovations out of Lawrence Livermore National Lab. So just a few numbers to give you some idea of the scale we're talking about here. Over the last 5 years, from ideas that we have licensed to companies across the country, over $1 billion worth of products were sold that contain Livermore innovations. That includes everything from lasers to research diagnostics to additive manufacturing and advanced manufacturing methodologies to better ways to deliver vaccines. If you look at the amount of royalties that we get from licensed technology, so when we have a piece of IP, we enter into an agreement with a business, they call that a license. They pay royalties back to the lab on the products that they sell. That topped almost $6 million last year in 2022. By the way, that's the number one. We're number one ranked of all the national labs in the system for royalties and licensing income. Over the years, there have been a number of innovators that have started their own companies. Two in particular, these companies, Cadence and Rambus. Cadence has to do with the microelectronics industry and how you use sort of CAD modeling to create components that go into computers. And then Rambus is a company that creates a type of memory that goes into your personal computer. Both of those public companies now have a total market value of over $53 billion. So that's in itself, I think, is a testament to the impact that we've had as a lab. A couple of years ago, the National Nuclear Security Administration, the people that administer our contract to operate the lab on their behalf, did a 20-year economic development impact study of the output in the space that I'm leading here at the lab, and came up with some interesting findings. The total overall impact over the last 20 years, just from products that came out of the lab, reach about $8 billion. On average, the number of jobs we create every year as a result of the products that are made from Livermore technology is over 1,000. So over 20 years, you're talking close to 30,000 jobs that have been created just from the innovations that have come out of the lab. There's been a value added to the overall economy, which is over $4 billion. That basically says how much does it cost to make a product, and then what's the total revenue they receive, so subtract those two. And that's what we've added to the US economy, with a cost savings of over almost $700 million to the federal government, just from the ideas that we've created, as well as new tax revenues at the federal, state, and local level of over $800 million. So those are pretty impressive numbers. So I had no idea of the scale until I got here of the level of impact we've had. And my vision for the office going forward is that I want to basically turn up the speed on that engine and drive even more engagement. We're at a very unique time right now in our nation's history. Over the last 2 years, at the federal level, we've seen the level of investment in science and technology. I think COVID, the pandemic, taught us from a supply chain perspective that the domestic economy and our ability to have innovations get to the US economy and to the marketplace is of extreme importance in our overall position in the world. So as our office that I'm leading, being a part of that, how do we both get the message out, engage with folks, and try to make a greater impact for the lab? So over the last few months, I've been working on the organization, pivoting some key positions, trying to come up with new processes. You will be seeing over the next year a lot of stories coming out about some of the things that I just talked about, all the impact that we've been having over the last 20 years and some of the products that are out there that many people don't even realize. And that's going to lead to hopefully more engagement, more partnerships that we create. And Sally talked about public-private partnerships. That's a big focus, especially in some of the key areas that we've talked about, such as fusion and in the bio realm. And so you will be seeing a lot more stories coming out. You'll be seeing a lot more things coming out of the lab that demonstrate the impact that we're having in the innovation ecosystem. So I keep talking about the ecosystem a lot, and all the stakeholders in my mind play their role. Talked about scientists and engineers, talked about Congress, but I especially believe that the state, local government, and local businesses actually play a very important role. The innovators and the scientists and engineers that work at the lab are all humans. They want to have a home. They want to be able to enjoy their lives. They want to be able to go out to eat. They want to be able to engage with businesses. And I feel that the folks on this call play a role in a lot of these impacts that we're trying to achieve. So I'm honored to be able to talk with each of you today and see how we can help this innovation ecosystem thrive at Lawrence Livermore National Lab. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Matt. I love the economic impact slide. I think that's great. And all of us as business, people in the community, we should all be paying attention to that. Does anybody have any questions for Matt or Sally? Lots of thank yous, lots of thumbs ups. Tracy, your hand is up.
Yes, hi, and thank you both, Sally and Matt. That was outstanding to hear about the connection and that collaboration on all fronts. Have to fuel one side to have it come out the other side, right? Pretty key. Matt, you mentioned about stories. I run the marketing organization for the Tri-Valley region. We're always looking at great stories that we need to put out there, as well as Innovation Tri-Valley Group. I don't know if you're on or connected with that, but we certainly, both of our organizations, want to hear all those stories as soon as you have them, so that we can get them out to our PR teams, and some people keep hearing about all the great stuff coming out of the labs. So thank
Tracy,
you.
thank you. I really appreciate that. My deputy, Elsie Quate Randall, is, I believe, on the board of Innovation Tri-Valley. We've had a strong relationship with them for many years. One of the things I'm hoping to achieve with Scott's help and with folks in the director's office as well is sort of creating some vignettes that we'll be putting out that actually talk to companies locally. One that you're maybe familiar with is Curtis Wright. Curtis Wright is leveraged a lot of the technology from the lasers that we've developed at the lab to do some very amazing things. And it's some people don't even know. It's just not easy to find. So I want to, my goal is to create sort of not only, lead the innovations that come out of the lab, but sort of help connect with everyone in the innovation ecosystem to show how much of an impact we're making. So I'm happy to work with you on help on making that
And
happen.
Matt and Scott, don't tell me anything unless you really want it to be public, because absolutely out there real fast. And I do
Excellent.
all your newsletters. Thank you.
Excellent.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you
to
again for
our-
the opportunity.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Nice to see you all.
wonderful to our speakers. And then we were going to go ahead and conclude this month's meeting, and